Now to a court ruling out of California that has teachers ready to put up a fight. This week, a Los Angeles Superior Court judge ruled that teacher tenure is unconstitutional and that it deprives students of a, quote, basically equal opportunity to achieve a quality education, end quote. The U of T president, Michael Mulgrew, he released this statement about the decision, saying what shocks the conscience is the way the judge misread the evidence and the law and sided with the Silicon Valley millionaire who never taught a day in his life. We have every confidence that this flawed decision will be reversed on appeal. New York Daily News reports education reformers in New York were already plotting a lawsuit to torpedo teacher tenure a day after a judge in California declared the practice unconstitutional. Well, today, I spoke with both sides of the issue. Dr. Alfred Passamantier, he's the dean of the Mercy College School of Education, and Sam Pirizzolo, he's the vice president of the New York City Parents Union. We talked about where they stand on the issue of teacher tenure. Given the audience the wind-up to what happened in California and the promise that this won't just stay there, that there will be cases like this in probably dozens of states when it's all said and done. Folks at home, whether they've had their kids through schools, whether they're part of the academic community, students themselves, everyone's got passionate ideas in this. I want to give you both the platform to make the argument for and against the concept of tenure. And I'll start with you, Doctor, in that you know the criticisms here. Why is it important that there be a special allowance, let's say for the academic community, that doesn't exist in a lot of other workplaces, and especially one so soon that's afforded? Why is that a good thing for education and for the kids?
First of all, tenure is, states have the right, according to the Constitution, to regulate education. This is one of the states' rights that has been guaranteed for over 200 years. The reason for tenure originally was to protect teachers against frivolous departure that might be done because of political positions or religious or other kinds of non-academic issues. The case for that's currently on the books about arguing against tenure is one that you can't make a generalized statement across the board. Now, why is there tenure now? Tenure is one of the draws that brings quality people to the classroom, because teachers are not the highest paid people in the world. But there is one advantage of job security that you cannot just dismiss because it's there. Now, the problem with tenure is, how is it guaranteed? Clearly, there should be a significant amount of time before a tenure decision is made. 18 months is by no means a good measure, because people in the first year are typically just learning the profession.
You believe in the premise, but maybe not in the application, that maybe it's a little premature. And Sam, the argument I hear from a lot of folks in the academic community is you're blaming the messenger here. In effect, you've got low-performing schools that are getting some of the least equipped teachers, and we're holding them to standards that aren't comparable to those schools that have better funding. Just being able to blame the teacher and kicking her or him out maybe too soon, there's a problem with education, but it's not necessarily the person at the front of the class.
Okay, so at the New York City Parents Union, our view is not really that, and to talk about what Al is saying, the Constitution also guarantees that children should have a high-quality education regardless of where they live. Our schools in some neighborhoods have more funding than schools that are in non-minority neighborhoods, so funding is really not the issue. And this is absolutely not about teacher bashing. Okay, every teacher that I know, and I have teachers in my family, love their students. But what it is about is looking at the numbers, and the numbers clearly show that over 50% of New York City students cannot read, cannot write. 73%, 77% of our high school students who graduated are not prepared for college.
Okay, but with somebody who's got teachers in their family and has been in, I'm sure, heard conversations from what goes behind the doors in the faculty lounge, you must have heard the stories to say, Joe here is a good teacher who cares about his kids maybe more than Mary, but Joe's students just aren't equipped, or the parents are sending them into the classroom here without the basic reading or math levels here, and it doesn't matter if they're the best teacher in the world, the numbers aren't going to add up at the end for what's, the best metric to measure.
So that's really only true for a certain percentage. You can't say that. So if you talk about 77% of New York City school children who graduate high school not being prepared for college, but you look at the reviews of how many teachers are rated satisfactory, the numbers are askew.
I think there's an issue here about how teachers are rated. Unfortunately, we're rating teachers according to how students perform in their class in math and literacy issues. And I think that's a little bit unfair because there are too many other variables that affect a student's performance in a classroom. It's not just
I don't want to interrupt you. I've heard that argument, and I understand the logic of it. Okay. But if you don't measure it by that standard, how can you?
Okay. Montgomery County, Maryland, has a different method for evaluating teachers, and I think that's something we ought to consider here. And that is a group of teachers, not from the school, will evaluate a teacher based on visits, school visits, and look at the person's total performance and make an evaluation of the teacher. It's not the principal. Principal may not like a teacher for any number of reasons, so that may not be the best way. But if you get a group of people who are independent, who have no axe to grind with the teacher, and make an assessment based on classroom observation and look at their portfolio and achievement as well, then I think you have a reasonable way of evaluating teachers.
I was surprised, maybe I shouldn't have been, that in certain districts, coincidentally the ones that have the highest minority populations or maybe the lowest, let's say, per pupil funding, they get the least equipped teachers. And that's more rule than not. And the other one is the seniority rules as to first one in or last one in, first to go.
Okay. So that's exactly what we're trying to address. Again, these schools are not poorly funded. They probably have more through the federal government Title I funding than schools that are not in minority communities. If you have teachers, if you don't have an effective rating system, what are you going to do to remove a teacher who is not rated properly? I mean, in New York City, it's unfortunate, and I'm not trying to knock the president of the UFT, but the man was proud of the fact that during the teacher evaluation negotiations with Mayor Bloomberg, that he muddied up the waters, wink, wink, to make sure that an evaluation system would never come about. And in doing that, because they did not reach an agreement for a teacher evaluation, New York City public schools children were fined $290 million by Governor Cuomo. If we don't have a way, a legitimate way, to remove low-performing teachers from our schools, what else do we have? In New York City, a teacher gets tenure after 3 years, and that was just increased to 3 years, okay? So, you know, I don't know of any other job where a job is guaranteed for life other than your performance.
We would be naive to suggest what happened in the California courtroom will stay in California. This will come here. In fact, some of the groups behind this have already promised they'll put even dollars behind the suits. When it comes to our backyard, do you think net at the end of the day, the education system will be better off for it? Or do you worry here that the consequences are going to be chilling?
It depends on how they step back from the current tenure. If they have a longer period of assessment, if the if the evaluation process changes, if the teachers have to prove themselves every 5 or 10 years, a reassessment.
And I would like to say that if David Welsh or anyone else would like to come to New York City and fund this battle for us, the New York City Parents Union would be happy to do that. My name is Sam Pirozzolo. My email address is sam@newyorcityparentsunion.org. We need to have a conversation on education. If we have to go to the extreme of suing to remove tenure to provide better education to all of our children, so be it.
Can I just add one thing?
Yep.
We talked about tenure, we talked about teachers, and you represent the parents. What we've done at Mercy College should be a paradigm for the rest of the city of New York. In the Bronx, with the help of the Borough President's Office, we've created a parent center. It's a separate building on our campus in the Bronx. And that is, our faculty has been offering workshops pro bono to faculty, to parents, with language issues, with even arithmetic. You know, people come from other countries, they learn other algorithms than the ones we teach. They can't help their kids when they come home. And so we help them learn the algorithms we teach for multiplication, division, and so on. All these things to help parents be really supportive.
So we're both saying that parents must be part of this equation. And right now, we're at the back of the bus.
All right. I want you at home to weigh in on this. Go to Facebook, Twitter, sound off on our question. Teacher tenure. Do you think It's unconstitutional. And even if you say, well, I don't know the law, tell me if you think it's right or wrong. I know the compelling arguments on both sides make your opinion heard. All right, coming up next, we're going to dive into New York politics. Bill de Blasio pushing to have Democratic convention in Brooklyn. Charlie Rangel and his challenger, Mr. Espaillat, facing off another heated debate. And you got to hear this story about Malcolm Smith. We're going to talk about that and more after this.